Hello and welcome to the Brooks Breakthrough Podcast. I am your host, Ashley Brooks. This is episode 3, and today I am joined by two amazing guests. They are both the founders of Cloud Castles, Mr. Jimmy Woodard and Bryan Marks. Thank you both so much for joining me today. These gentlemen are actually helping everyday people get into the world of real estate investing, and I'm so excited for them to not only share what they and their team are doing and how they're helping people, but also just what they're seeing across the US. I know people have so many questions about not just real estate, but especially Airbnbs. It's a world that a lot of people are getting into now. So I'm excited for us to jump into that. So gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. It is a pleasure to have you both on today.
Yeah, thanks for having us here, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
Of course. So before we get into Cloud Castles and the company, share a little bit of your background. Where are you guys from? How did y'all meet and how did this all come to be?
Oh yeah, I can jump in. So Jimmy and I go way back. Actually, I found a flyer. We both went to Berkeley at the same time. I found a flyer for a student-run course on leadership. So I was, kind of serendipitously just kind of walked into the class. Jimmy was there, greeted him. We had like a good connection. We always hung out. And then one time he invited me up to Lake Tahoe with a bunch of friends, college style. This was before Airbnbs or short-term rentals was kind of a word. And we stayed at this property, had an amazing experience, and kind of thought throughout the whole thing, like after skiing and snowboarding, we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we just own one of these that can make us money, and then we could use it in our own spare time. And that was kind of like the eventually it came to fruition was Cloud Castles, which is basically the company that enables folks to do that.
Yeah, Brian is dating us. We've been out of college for a little bit of time now, but all the same, we've known each other for over a decade now. So it's been a fun ride. And as he mentioned, we started because we had the same pain point that a lot of our audience has, is trying to build your wealth through real estate. How do you do it when you don't have $100,000, $200,000 to drop on a property? So I'm sure we're going to get into the details on this podcast, but that's the genesis of Cloud Castles.
So how long was it after you graduated to when you actually started the company?
Ashley, you're trying to date us right now.
Sorry.
Don't do that.
I won't.
Yeah, a little, yeah.
Maybe it's been
about 10 years, a little over 10 years, Brian.
Yeah, so Jimmy and I were both on different career paths, and then we kind of. So Jimmy is a recovering law student, as he often says.
Correct.
I was
right.
In the medical school track, and then we both kind of circled back around to tech later in our careers, and then joined finally to kind of start this company. I guess officially it was launched about 1.5 years ago, 2 years. So it's a pretty fresh company, but we've seen some awesome growth and worked with a ton of different folks from all walks of life and all kind of investment backgrounds, to everyone from who potentially has like a $50 million fund that we've worked with and had great experience with, all the way over to this is the first time they're investing in real estate and they're just out of high school and they're buying real estate for the first time.
Okay, so Jimmy, your background was law. You made a switch. And then Bryan, your background was tech. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. Well, so I know that you probably use a little bit of AirDNA's information as you guys are doing all that you're doing. And so I was reading this past week some stats they came out with for May. And so they were saying that available short-term rentals actually reached 1.34 million listings. And that's a 24% jump year over year. Demand is up 70%, average daily rates are up 4%, revenue is up 23%. This is all year over year. What are your thoughts on that? And then what are your feelings as far as the amount of inventory that's coming in? Does that make you nervous at all?
Well, in terms of the increase, kind of makes sense, right? Because we're coming out of a pandemic. People have been waiting to travel. So that part does not surprise me. For the inventory part of the equation, it's not a secret anymore that short-term rentals can produce higher returns than a long-term tenant can. So for us at Cloud Castles, I mean, we've known this since we started the company. You have to have the top inventory in whatever market that you're in, or else you're going to be in trouble, because this is not a listed and they will come solution. And you have to have the amenities, the location, really the total package if someone is going to choose your home over the dozens of other competition that's in the same area as you are. So we definitely focus on being at the top so that we don't have to worry about oversupply.
Okay. That makes sense. Any feedback from you, Brian?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand your question. So there's basically two parts. You were saying that the increase of inventory of short-term rental listings. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And well, so there's an increase in everything, right? Demand, revenue. There's so much, and that really shows that there's opportunity, right? When there's that much demand. So sorry about that. That was on me. But so much demand coming up, the revenue's there, right? There's opportunities to make more money. What are your thoughts on that? And then what are your thoughts on the fact that you have more competition coming up against some of your properties?
Like you can add a lot more short-term rental listings. Doesn't mean you're going to necessarily have more competition if you're the only house in the block in a very exclusive neighborhood that has a pool. Like you're not really competing because you're competing with everyone, all of your comps at the end of the day. So just because there's more general, like the total number of listings increased doesn't mean the comps have increased for your Airbnb or short-term rentals. So no, we're very bullish on it. We think this is a great opportunity for Americans and just folks in general to get more passive income and develop this more. And instead of like larger hotel chains coming up and buying a lot more real estate, I think there's an opportunity for individual investors or small groups of investors or family and friends to come in and actually have a foothold in the market. So we're very bullish on it. I think there's we're kind of just seeing the start of things in the short-term rental space and the shared ownership space, in my opinion.
So what does it look like for an investor to actually partner with you? What is the process that an investor would go through with you?
As the tech founder here, I'm going to pass off to Brian because I can't coach for anything, Ashley. So I'll let Brian talk about how he built out our app experience, make it a lot easier for folks.
Actually, make sure I understand your question. You're saying that it was how do investors partner with us?
Correct. And what would the process look like if someone actually wanted to partner with you?
Yeah, there's basically two experiences that we can have. One of which is kind of more casual retail experience, and that's all through the mobile app. So you come in 4 clicks and you will sign what's called PPM, which is basically a pretty standard real estate doc for owning a portion of real estate. And you sign, and basically after 4 clicks and a payment, you would own that portion of real estate. We do offer like a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not interested in the property. You will have like second thoughts and you want to kind of get your money back, pull out an investment. We do offer that as well. But that's the retail experience. It's really simple through the app. It's kind of like the Robinhood for real estate is ultimately what we're going for, where investors can come in very casually and add real estate, specifically short-term rentals, to their portfolio of investments. But what we actually really like to do is work with directly with investors and folks who are interested in being a little bit more strategic and interested in getting a little bit early and interested in partnering with us on choosing maybe the market, choosing how the house should be, choosing the amenities, choosing those sorts of things. So we try to have, we try to take the fun, have the investors keep all the fun stuff in investing. Like they get to choose all the cool things and what they want to do and how they want the vibe to be. Do they want more of a beach lounge, or they want a tiki bar? Do they want a speakeasy? Do they want this? Do they want that? And we really work with them on the fun side of things. And we try to take all the not so fun stuff out of short-term rental, like management or, dealing with the finances, dealing with the tax information. That's the stuff we want to handle. That's our business. We just want our investors to have a really good experience with it at the end of the day. So that's called our Alpha program. And really, it's kind of the only difference between the two is there's basically a minimum to the Alpha program, a minimum investment, but it's pretty reasonable and it's pretty flexible depending on the market.
Got it. And so with a property, how many investors are you allowing to actually invest in one particular property?
We have a cap of 35 non-accredited investors in any one given property just because we want to follow SEC guidelines. So we track that, and it's something where eventually we'll get to a place where we follow a different SEC guideline called Reg A, where we can take any investor. But for now, just based on where we are as a company, we're capping it at 35. And unlimited amount of accredited investors in a particular property.
Got it. Okay. And then how are you and the team determining what cities you're actually going into and buying properties?
Well, it's a combination of things. We have a internal metric that we utilize, or a synonym, I should say, for great properties, right? So it's based on the geo number one. So we want to make sure that we're in markets that people vacation to. What are the tourism numbers? What is the actual demand for this particular market? Even beyond that, what are the regulations? Because a lot of people make a mistake, Ashley, where they think, oh, let me go to Chicago because it's top 3 in the entire country, but they don't realize that Chicago has one of the worst short-term rental regulations in the country as well. So we look at regulations. Of course, we look at the numbers, so the economics behind a given deal that we're looking at. We also look at amenities because, as we mentioned earlier, that matters a lot in this space. And then time to market, because there are certain properties where you might have to do a lot of work, and that might not be as good of an ideal as getting a turnkey property. So if you look across those 5 factors, then it helps us determine, is this going to be a good deal or not? And that's how we found deals in Tahoe, Miami, Gatlinburg, near Disney World, and soon to be Tampa and Vegas.
Got it. When you find, let's say, a fixer-upper that you're going to remodel and turn into an Airbnb, what does that look like? Because I know you guys don't live in all of those cities. What does that look like to getting a team to actually flip that house?
Yeah, we can, we flip, we renovate all of our houses to some degree. Some of them are somewhat turnkey, but we really want to make them pop, and we really want to make it like an amazing experience for our guests. So, and then some of them are just like, this house was probably abandoned and just occupied by like 30 dogs before we got it. It's a whole range of houses that we'll onboard onto our platform. The big strategy there is to get a team you trust and to get a team you really like working with. That's not particularly easy, but if you go through a few contractors, you'll find kind of your diamond in the rough, and they'll be your saving grace for a lot of your projects, and you just want to reciprocate and treat them really well. We have a great team in Tennessee and in Florida and California that we work with, and we've vetted a lot of folks. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of know what is realistic for an estimate. If someone comes in, in Vegas, and they say, oh, it's going to be $250,000 to redo this house, and you want to be able to look through that itemized budget and be like, is it actually going to be 250,000? Guess what? It's not going to be 250,000. That's a ridiculous quote. We've gotten that kind of quote before on a property. So you have to really know kind of what it takes to actually redo a floor, what it takes to actually, if a wall, for example, has collapsed, what is it actually going to take to make that structurally sound? What's the permit process like? You have to kind of know those details, or at least be able to have a conversation around it. And if you have that knowledge, and you're not working like with asymmetric knowledge where they know everything and you know nothing, then you'll be in pretty good shape.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So I know the question before that was as far as, what do you look at whenever you pick a city? And so you'd mentioned regulations, Jimmy. So I know that plays a big part in general, but what you mentioned, Chicago's not that regulation friendly. What are some of the cities and states that are regulation friendly?
I would recommend Florida for anyone listening to this. It's a fantastic state with multiple locations across the state, from Kissimmee right next to Disney World, Emerald Coast, which is Destin, Panama City Beach area. Tampa has favorable regulations. Miami, it's a little bit of a patchwork, but you can find something in Miami as well. And there are a couple others throughout Florida. But overall, I would tell somebody, if they're going to start and they don't care the market, I'd say Florida is your best bet, because you have a lot of options out there.
Got it. Okay, good to know. So my family actually stayed at an Airbnb in Galveston over the weekend, and we actually had 4 generations of families. And so it was interesting to get to see all 4 of them actually enjoy it. And the house that we stayed at, I mean, my husband and I are hosts, but we were very, very impressed by how personalized and particular they were in the entire experience, the hosts anyway. And so you mentioned earlier, Bryan, that you incorporate some of your investors in being able to take part in some of the experience part of getting properties ready. But what do you guys do to make sure that experiences are personalized based on the city, based on the location for guests when you're getting these houses ready?
So I would say, you really want to focus on the details, like the small things here. We have like a practice of leaving some sparkling cider and some champagne for our guests. We have branded items that folks can have as part of like the amenities at the house. As far as, it really starts with making sure you've maximized the space in the house as well. Like, you don't want any dead space, or you want to be able to convert, like, for example, we have like movie theaters in a lot of our Airbnbs. It's like a really fun kind of family friendly way of having folks there. It's just a nice amenity to have. Hot tubs. It's always good to have like a good it really comes down to pictures a lot of times at the end of the day. So really good pictures, it can be really compelling. We try to go for like a fire and water shot where there's like a fire pit near a hot tub, or like there's, a pool by, the gas grill or something. So people can really visualize how the experience, what it's going to be like. But I would say, yeah, pictures are going to be number one, then the reviews are going to kind of follow next. And then the amenities are just kind of a layer of both of those experiences. So, if you have the good amenity, or sorry, like those little touches are going to be kind of a layer of both your reviews and the pictures themselves. But I would say if you have great pictures and great reviews, you're going to do really well.
Yeah. No, I agree. So that's actually how we booked ours. So one of my sisters and I were in charge of putting everything together for our other sister who was turning 30, and my mom, whose birthday is literally one day apart. And so my sister, whose birthday it was, and my mom didn't know where we were staying. They just knew we were going. And it's funny because I just looked at the pictures and saw the reviews. I saw like how many stars they were, but I didn't really thoroughly read them. Mm-hmm. And when I mapped it, I noticed we were right across from a cemetery. And so when my sister, whose birthday it was, and my mom, when they put into the GPS, because we gave them the address, they're like, wait, why are we staying across from a cemetery? One, and two, the picture in Google Maps was the picture before it was renovated. So it just looked like it was a rundown shack that was abandoned. So it made them a little nervous, but I was like, no, here are the pictures, the actual listing. It doesn't look like that, I promise.
Yeah, and that goes to the geo, right? Because the geo is not just the market, it's also where are you located within the market? Because if you're closer to the beach or closer to the attractions, you tend to get booked up higher. And if you're closer to a cemetery, you can run the risk of getting booked a lot lower than some of the comps in the area. So geo definitely matters when you're investing in short-term rentals.
Very, very true. So we live in a world that is constantly changing. And I know that as you guys have your startup, there's a lot that, sometimes you don't even expect. And there are times you have to pivot with your team. Have there been any experiences where things just changed rapidly and you and your team had to pivot? What was that like, and how did you guys pivot?
One thing that comes to mind is we actually thought, so our business model is basically you can become an investor and you own a portion of the property, at which point, based on your equity that you own, you get paid out on monthly cadence, the profits, proportion of the equity. So, if you own 10%, you get 10% of the profits at the end of the month. And then we also had an arm of the business that would be staying at the property. So you'd be able to stay there and vacation there a great deal. And that's how we think folks get the most value, is being able to stay at the property they own, and then also get the payment on top of that. But this wasn't necessarily a fast moving pivot, but we realized most of our investors like the idea of staying at the house, but most of them actually don't stay at the house. They just want a real estate investment at the end of the day. So that was one thing that was a little bit surprising from our initial hypothesis on the company and how it worked. Is that folks are generally just more interested in the investment portion. It's a little bit more exciting for folks to kind of see, how is the property doing. They can do a little bit of arbitrage here because we offer a variety of properties you can buy across the country. So they can kind of spread their money out and see which ones are doing a little bit better and which one are doing a little bit worse, and then double down on the ones that are doing well, and then maybe sell or try to negotiate a different price or get cash out, refine the ones that aren't doing as well. So at the end of the day, we're kind of in the property management business, but long term, we're basically going to be a platform for folks to choose and pick Airbnbs to invest in, or short-term rentals.
Got it. Understood. And how are you going about promoting the app to people? Because I had never actually heard about the app till I connected with me.
Yeah, a lot of word of mouth. I mean, with following SEC guidelines, we cannot generally solicit or advertise, right? So a lot of it is educational based content. We hop on podcasts like this, we go to meetup groups and do presentations. We try to generate referrals, and we give out bonuses to people who help spread the word. So a lot of it is just boots on the ground work to build the knowledge that we exist. And it's been a fun ride thus far, and that's how we connected with each other on Bigger Pockets.
Yeah. What was it like starting this during the pandemic? A lot of people started companies during the pandemic, but what was it like for you two?
Should we tell the story of how we actually started and how we pivoted?
Well, you mentioned it, so I feel like you should now, Jimmy.
Yeah, you should. Go ahead.
Yeah, we mentioned we have a Disney World property. We actually were going to start with Disney World, And we were going to buy this in March of 2020. We had an offer accepted, and then the world turned upside down. So it was scrambling, to say the least. Very young company. I mean, it was going to be our first property that we ever had. And then we figured out, oh, wait, nobody's traveling right now. And we're trying to start a business based on the short-term rental industry. So we had to really hunker down and figure out, how do we do this business when travel has been shut off completely, or so we thought. So what we found out is people are still traveling even during the pandemic, but it's just driving distance traveling. So instead of hopping on planes, people were still trying to get out of the house because we were all going crazy at the time back in 2020 and 2021. And so that's where we found our Lake Tahoe property, which is about 3.5 hour drive from the Bay Area. So it worked out, but it was a harrowing experience, to say the least, when we had to pivot rapidly to get out of that deal into a new one.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we, it was March 2020, we were supposed to close on this Disney World property. It was a nice property. And then we saw that Disney China had been shut down. And so we're like, well, maybe this COVID thing will spread. So we backed out of the deal. And then we thought we were so clever because we backed out that deal in March 2020. But the problem was, a year later, the house was worth $100,000 more. So we would have had to float the house.
Right?
Like it was closed. It was like Disney World was closed for like it did have significant amount of economic impact. But a year later, the house maybe would have been worth $100K. So it's kind of like you have to do the math there, how much did we really lose? But Lake Tahoe was a great investment because Lake Tahoe was just booked solid. Like it was because everyone wanted to get out of the city, and they wanted to go 3-4 hours driving. So Lake Tahoe was a good silver medal. It also appreciated a lot in value during the pandemic. And right now, we think that the general trend with a lot of this stuff with COVID is that the secondary market's going to be hit a little bit harder now that everyone's traveling a little bit more and gas is a little bit more expensive. For example, in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, like they're noticing a little bit of a dip because a lot of folks aren't taking that cross-country trip to see their family because gas is so expensive. They're kind of skipping out on stuff because groceries are so expensive. But we're seeing the major cities like Miami and Vegas still really having a lot of traffic. So that's what I think for the foreseeable future is going to kind of be the trend there.
Makes sense. Do you guys book on Expedia as well? Those types of platforms? Is it strictly like VRBO and Airbnb?
Booking.com, not Expedia though.
Booking.com, okay. Got it. What is the traction like on that platform for you?
It's hit or miss. I mean, we do get some bookings from Booking.com. 90% of our bookings come from Airbnb. They are the 800-pound gorilla in the space. So we get a lot of our guests from the Airbnb platform.
Okay. So my husband, he's a director of revenue within the hotel industry. And so we were talking this past week, he just started with a new hotel here in like the Woodlands area. So it's North Houston. And so he was, doing his due diligence, looking at, comps on a variety of platforms, and he started noticing more and more short-term rentals coming up on some of those platforms, which we thought was interesting.
Yeah, especially hotels, right?
Say that again.
Hotels is an interesting trend I've seen as well. More hotels are listing their properties on Airbnb, which, think about where it started as Airbnb, renting out shared spaces and homes, and now boutique hotels are a very popular option in certain areas in the country.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting even just seeing how hotel owners are pivoting now. So I think I've shared some of the stories with you guys. There's one in particular. He and his family have a number of hotels around the north side, but they just bought a plot of land and they're going to build an apartment community that's literally just going to go as Airbnb. No one's going to work there, and just it'll be interesting to see how everything starts to change in the next few years. He was telling us a story about there's this big convention called AHOA, and it's Asia Association of Asian Hotel Owners, something like that. And this past year, there was one hotel owner that owns like 100 in his portfolio, and he got up there and he said in front of all of the brands, "I am telling my kids that we're not buying hotels anymore. We're going to buy Subways, we're going to buy McDonald's, we're going to buy," and going through a list because those are turnkey ready, because the brands almost aren't keeping up with what's happening. And so it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of them start to pivot. There's another hotel owner that we know that they're looking at not only getting into Airbnb, but also into the senior living facilities, because more and more people are going to those facilities, and they're like, if we can manage hotels, we can manage healthcare. older community facilities.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see what hotels are going to look like in another 5 years, because they're reaching a lot of competition. But so are there any plans to eventually expand into or outside the country? And if so, what are you guys hoping for in the future?
Absolutely. I'm outside the country right now, scoping some stuff out. So
Nice,
it's
okay.
He's on vacation. Don't listen to the guy.
scoping really hard, working really. No, we definitely want to go international. I think there's a huge opportunity in the EU and Mexico and Latin America. But at the end of the day, our mission is to allow anyone to own real estate anywhere. And really lower the barrier of entry to owning real estate. So that's our end mission, and we think that there's a lot of opportunity in the international market. I think it's going to be a little bit foreign in more ways than one to kind of work in those markets, but I think there's a good opportunity there, especially if you can develop some really good close relationships with some folks who actually live there. I know some folks who have done some investing in Mexico, and it can be really hit or miss. And I know some folks who have done some investing in Europe as well, and it's kind of a similar story. But if you can kind of be a little bit flexible and really adapt to the situation, I think there's a huge opportunity there.
Got it. Well, it'll be exciting to see where y'all get into first. So this next segment is called the 4 W's. So it is said that you are what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, and who you hang out with. So for the first one, what kind of content do you gentlemen watch? Are you big TV people, or are you mainly on your iPads and laptops? What does that look like for you?
During the day, my day is so crazy that I only have time to just barely look at ESPN because I'm a huge sports guy.
Mhm.
But at night, when I tune my brain off and I veg out with my wife, we're watching something on Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. So lately, it's been Stranger Things and Love, Death, and Robots.
What about you, Brian?
Yeah, plus one to Jimmy's been pretty busy. Those are definitely two that are up there. I'm a classic James Bond fanatic, so I like the old Rush with Love and Dr. No. Those are kind of like my feel good movies when I'm bored.
That's funny. Well, what are you guys listening to? You're more podcasts, more music, audiobooks? What does that look like for you?
I'm a music guy. I mean, it usually only happens when I'm working out, but definitely a big music guy. Put the hip hop on, get in the zone, and then get ready to work out for the time that I have to work out these days.
Got it. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, no, I think it's tough. I've been traveling a lot, but I do like a good I do like some good soundtrack stuff, some lo-fi stuff to cut. So I do spend a lot of time coding, and you can't really listen to podcasts, unfortunately. While you code, you have to basically kind of zone out and be in the mode. So I'll do a lot of lo-fi stuff, just kind of studying music. It's really boring. Actually, I was on another podcast, and someone told me that my responses were the boringest responses they ever heard. So I was studying. Might be
I promise he's cooler in person, guys. He's cooler in person.
That is funny. So my husband and I, we are very much like the yin and the yang. I'm the salesperson, the more outgoing, talkative person. He's the numbers guy that's always in front of the computer. You guys have a good yin and yang. You have to have both in order to have a company. So it's not that you're boring. You're just the more analytical one.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. So what are the latest books that you guys have read? Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I said thank you, Ashley. Just more analytical. Most recent books that I've read, also very exciting. I was reading some React JavaScript documentation, very compelling character.
That's where he lost the last person that he alluded to when he started talking about that.
It's a good web
framework. That sounds too exciting for me.
Yeah, it's really edge of the seat stuff. So, but yeah, we do have a software company at the end of the day, and we don't have a ton of developers. And I don't, a lot of developers we work with, we have a pretty high bar. So, I end up doing a lot of coding. So a lot of it's just I had to do a lot of technical documentation, unfortunately. So, but I do enjoy it. So that's
funny. What about you, Jimmy? Are you a big reader?
Yeah, I just realized that my last two books both have thinking in the title. So definitely seems to be that's what's on my mind right now is critical thinking as we talk about building a business here. So I'd say Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke is a great book for anybody, especially if you deal in realms where you don't always know what the answer is. Thinking in Bets was a great read. And then I'm rereading Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Another fantastic book just to see all the hidden biases that we have that we don't even realize that we go through on a day-to-day basis. So those are the two thinking related books that I'd recommend.
Those are really good. Since you're into like thinking and mindset stuff, have you read The Greatest Salesman in the World?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
definitely.
yeah. Someone just gave that to me last month, and I'm like literally reading it because you do that every chapter every day.
Yeah.
And I've been skipping, like I'll do 3 a day, just because it's so freaking good.
That's it.
And
when a good book gets you, it's hard to get out of it, right?
Right. Yeah. And then when it comes to the people you hang around, when you look at if you think of the people that you choose to hang out with the most, are there common similarities among them? Are there common traits that you find that you're drawn to?
I hang out with a lot of entrepreneurs. Jimmy and I talk every day. I think whether for better or for worse, Jimmy and I talk every day. So
yeah, my wife hates it. Actually, him and I are always talking. It's like, oh, that's your other wife. Stop.
Kristen says that. That's hilarious. Yeah, I actually know Jimmy before Kristen met. So we all went to college together though, which was funny. So we know each other a long time, and I was at their wedding. So tell Kristen I say hello, Jimmy. But and I'll stop calling you as much. Yeah, I think it's important to hang out with like-minded folks. Absolutely. Entrepreneurship is something that's very important to myself. And so I do hang out with a lot of entrepreneurs or folks who are doing some really cool, interesting things. And I think it really does provide like an atmosphere to learn from. And also just to be around good people is always good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, plus one that between a business and a 16-month-old, don't have much time to hang out with friends these days, but definitely as much as we can pick brains from other entrepreneurs, and I'm always down for that.
Awesome. Well, before we go, my last question for you is going to be, do you have any encouragement or words of wisdom to other people wanting to maybe create a startup or create that business that they've been thinking about for a long time? Any words of wisdom that you have to share with them?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Absolutely. It's a great question, Ashley. I think if anyone's interested in starting a short-term rental business, the first thing they should do is reach out to us. Just because we work with a lot of folks who are interested in starting, and we have a lot of knowledge. And also Jimmy and I, at this point, basically are volunteers because we do not take a paycheck for our company, Cloud Castles. We want to scale the company and just reinvest everything back into the company. So we're not going to make a profit out of it. The idea is to really help scale and grow and give investors a really good experience. So that's for folks who are interested in starting their own short-term rental business. Please reach out to us at cloudcastles.io or Jimmy or Brian at cloudcastles.io. But beyond that, if you want to start your own business, I would say jump in and get ready to go and just work nonstop until you can't work anymore, and then just keep working. I think it's really about input. There's like that old saying, basically 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration is how you kind of get things done. And I truly believe that.
Awesome. What about you, Jimmy?
I would say have a partner that you trust, and as you mentioned earlier, that complements whatever your skills are. Because I see a lot of people get into entrepreneurship, they do it by themselves, and lose motivation quickly because entrepreneurship is not an easy thing to do on your own. And related to that, have somebody that is complementing whatever skill set that you have so that you can both build better than what you could ever do by yourself. So in that sense, 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 2. So those are the two biggest things I'd say if somebody wants to start their own business. Have a partner, make sure that partner is somebody that enhances your skills instead of diminishes them.
Do you think that also helps with accountability? Because one thing I notice a lot in being in real estate, when you go solo especially, the thing that a lot of people struggle with is that you now have no boss, so you struggle with accountability and you struggle to build your own structure because there was already structure built for you by other people, and now you have to go and build it yourself.
Yeah.
You feel that having a partner helps that part of it.
definitely, because you can go off the rails and you might not even realize it unless you have somebody else that is telling you, wait, slow down. Have you thought about this angle for this problem, right? So accountability definitely helps. And as much as we've been a great team, of course, we butt heads sometimes as well. So that's part of building a business is you're not always going to agree, but you need to have that accountability so that you can build the best thing instead of just trying to build your thing. So that's why business partner certainly helps.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you again so much for joining me today. Where can people follow you? Are there certain social sites that you prefer for people to give you a shout out? Or are you, I know, Brian, you mentioned your email. Would you prefer email or social?
Yeah, I mean, email's fine. It's just Brian with the Y, Cloudcastles with an S.io, or you can just download the app, check it out. If you hit up support, it'll get to us. We do offer, if you give us a 5-star review, we'll give you free share at your first purchase. So let us know if you're interested in trying out the app. It's available in the App Store and the Google Play Store.
Awesome. Jimmy, what about you? Where do you want to share any of your social accounts or just go to the app?
Well, our social is lacking because neither of us are very good at social media. But if you want to hit us up on Instagram at cloudcastles.io, same deal. If you want to reach out to me personally, Jimmy at cloudcastles.io.
Perfect. And I'll put that in the description below. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for hosting us, Ashley.
Ashley, appreciate it.